For the last 25 years, the LEGO Company and Star Wars have been linked together through physical sets, video games, and animated shorts. It's almost impossible to separate the two after all these years. I myself have spent countless hours playing the video games and building assorted LEGO sets. In recent years, Disney Plus has taken advantage of this partnership, creating 3 holiday-themed animated LEGO specials set in a galaxy far, far away. While it's easy to dismiss these specials as nothing more than animated entertainment for young children, what if I said there's actually interesting parts of them that could even be considered canon? For the purpose of today's video, I wanted to explore the fun and canonical implications of the 3 LEGO holiday specials created for Disney Plus. However, before I can get into each special, I feel I should preface what I mean when I say they could be considered canon. Now, obviously, the LEGO shenanigans or over-the-top humor are not what I'm referring to and can even break canon at times. I'm mostly talking about the story events that take place in each special. That being said, they obviously can't be outright canon, seeing as they're not officially recognized by Lucasfilm as such, and they're frankly silly LEGO shows for children. That's why for the purpose of this video, I will be referring to these as quasi-canon or S-canon. In terms of Star Wars, this means these are supplementary materials that aren't officially canon, but could be partially considered so, until overridden by more important canon material. For example, we can say Rey teaching Finn to use the Force in the holiday special is canon. However, if they ever actually make that Rey Skywalker New Jedi Order movie, and in that they say Rey never trained Finn, then everything in the LEGO special is thrown out. That's how S-canon works. It's supplementary and can be replaced by more important canon material. So with all that being said, let's get into the specials.
A day of joy we all can share.
The LEGO Star Wars Holiday Special is the first festive-themed special written by David Shane and directed by Ken Cunningham. Ironically enough, these specials almost make for a holiday trilogy of sorts, with each special focusing on one member of the sequel trilogy trio. What also makes that interesting is that they're all set after The Rise of Skywalker, making this some of the only material we've seen from Lucasfilm set this far in the timeline. After the negative reception of The Rise of Skywalker, it seemed like Lucasfilm has refused to visit this period in the galaxy. So it's kinda cool that the LEGO specials explore this period, even if it's not canon. With an opening narration from Yoda, we learn that Rey and her friends are preparing to celebrate Life Day, seeing as the holiday is celebrated once again after the defeat of the First Order. If you're not familiar, Life Day is the winter holiday that serves as a substitute for Christmas, Kwanzaa, or Hanukkah in Star Wars. It was introduced in the insane 1978 holiday special,
Stir, whip, stir, whip, 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 stir. Stir, whip, stir, whip, 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 stir. Come on, faster all together now, cooking can be fun. Stir, whip, 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 stir. Stir, whip, whip, stir. Wah! Having fun, all right? Coming along nicely now.
Along the way, Rey and Finn have begun his Jedi training, something hinted at in The Rise of Skywalker. This is the first thing I personally consider canon. It just makes sense, and it was clearly where the story was heading with Finn after making him Force sensitive in The Rise of Skywalker. Unfortunately, it's not going well.
Oh yeah! Ow! Oh, come on!
Finn isn't sure he's ready to become a Jedi, and Rey isn't ready to teach. This actually makes total sense, as Rey barely received any formal training herself, relying on the handful of lessons she received from Luke, Leia, and the ancient Jedi text. How can she teach Finn when she barely knows what she's talking about? So the team arrives on Kashyyyk, and we are immediately greeted by Chewie's family. Which, can I just say, I think the canonization of Chewie's family just makes all the time he spends with Han a little odd. It's even touched upon in the book, The Princess and the Scoundrel, where Chewie protests going to visit his family after the defeat of the Empire. Why doesn't this man want to return to his wife and child? But before the party can begin, Rey discovers an ancient Jedi Life Day artifact and ritual that will allow her to speak with Jedi of the past. However, it can only be performed on the planet Cardoku. Therefore, she must leave her friends on Life Day. Finn tries to encourage Rey to take the day off, but she falls to the pressure of being a Jedi and leaves. This all falls into the standard the main protagonist can't balance life and work dilemma so often found in holiday entertainment. While it might sound a little too festive for Star Wars, I think it's a fun look into a holiday we only ever hear name dropped in proper canon. Upon finding the artifact, an ancient Jedi crystal, Rey learns that it possesses the ability to travel through time and space. Now, this is not Star Wars' first attempt at time travel. We have the World Between Worlds that was shown in Rebels in Ahsoka. However, in those instances, they played out more like this was always going to happen in a Harry Potter time turner fashion. In this instance, it is more traditional time travel, where Rey can actually interfere with the events of the past. I don't love the contradictory versions of time travel, but you can chalk it up to this specific artifact, allowing you to do this. During Rey's time traveling, she watches other masters train their students, hoping to learn how to do so herself with Finn. She learned several lessons, including do or do not from Yoda at Luke's training, Jedi do not seek adventures from Qui-Gon, be aware of your surroundings from Clone Wars era Anakin and Obi-Wan, and trust in the Force from Luke's iconic Death Star trench run. While these are all iconic moments between masters and their Padawans, Rey is spending her life day observing other friendships, but not her own. Meanwhile, Poe continues to be the butt of every joke back on Kashyyyk.
What are you doing?
Engine thruster roasting! Cook super fast! Disaster averted.
I know he was the most lighthearted of the group in the sequel trilogy, but he was never this stupid. Finally, all Rey's time-traveling shenanigans land her on the Death Star 2, in the middle of an argument between Palpatine and Vader, showing how toxic their relationship is. Again, while the obvious LEGO shenanigans of their argument probably didn't happen, Vader and Palpatine's toxic relationship is no secret to any Star Wars fan. Sensing the power of the artifact, Palpatine sends Vader after Rey through the time portal. Back in present day, Rey and Vader engage in a fight over the time crystal. This is actually a really cool fight, seeing these two interact in a way that they never could otherwise. Vader even remarks that he's impressed by Rey's skills in the Force, which I know made some toxic fanboys groan or turn it off. How dare their flawless favorite character compliment the SJW Mary Sue? Which is crazy to get mad about, seeing as this is a silly LEGO special. As they fight, they continue to misuse the crystal, taking their fight across the Star Wars timeline. This provides a whole bunch of member berries as they travel through The Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith, The Mandalorian Season 1, The Phantom Menace, The Clone Wars, and The Rise of Skywalker. At each time jump, they accidentally take a few people from each time with them. Eventually, they all get dumped at the Binary Suns moment from A New Hope, and erupt into a big fan service fight.
Hello there. Gunta solos?
You want to shoot first? After you.
I fully admit, this is the part of the special where I can't really give you a canon explanation for this. While it's fun to see all these other versions of characters fight, it makes no sense unless we say they all forget about this when they return to their original time. So ultimately, by the end of the fight, Vader kills BB-8, throws Rey and A New Hope Luke back into the present day, and escapes back to Palpatine with the crystal. Yes, you heard that right. Darth Vader kills BB-8 in the LEGO Star Wars Holiday Special. Meanwhile, Vader and Palpatine use the crystal to travel to a point in time between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, meeting Vader's grandson, Kylo Ren. There, Kylo updates Palpatine on the timeline and returns with them to Return of the Jedi. Once back in his proper time, Palpatine plots to change the timeline with Kylo's help, preventing his death, to which Kylo remarks,
"Sending Vader down to the forest moon above Endor to get Skywalker sets off the exact chain of events that ends with Vader picking you up and chucking you down a reactor shaft. And there's no coming back from that."
Frankly, this does feel like a plot Palpatine would come up with if he had access to time travel. In the comics and books, he is constantly trying to find ways to avoid death. Back in the present day, Luke helps Rey fix BB-8 in a nice moment, seeing as he is her future master. I'm a sucker for the old time traveler who meets someone from their past, which will be that person's future trope. And to top it off, Rey gets a visit from the ghost of Yoda. Here, he essentially tells Rey the same lesson he told Luke in The Last Jedi, that all teachers fail and from failure we learn. He also shows Rey the power of friendship, seeing as Rey thought she could do this alone. Again, this is a flaw we saw from Rey the entire sequel trilogy that she's still working to grow past. This appearance of Yoda is made extra special because it's one of the final performances by Tom Kane, the voice actor for Yoda in all of animation. Unfortunately, Kane suffered a stroke in late 2020 and retired from voice acting shortly after, so it was nice to hear him one last time as the little green frog. Inspired by her moment with Yoda, Rey creates a new time portal with the other crystals in the cave. This is a very Star Wars resolution to this problem. The Clone Wars and Rebels constantly have situations where the main characters must tap into the Force or use their wits to solve a problem after the easy solution has been removed. Catching up with the Sith, Kylo is getting cold feet about altering the timeline, and Rey joins Return of the Jedi Luke to confront Palpatine. The four break into a large fight, Rey vs. Vader and Kylo vs. Luke. Just like I said earlier, these are interesting matchups, seeing a prime Luke Skywalker confront his evil nephew after refusing to fight him in the sequel trilogy. Ultimately, though, good triumphs over evil, and Rey, in a cheeky reference to The Force Awakens, sends Kylo back to his timeline. It's a nice attention to detail that Rey is actually sad about returning Kylo to the timeline, knowing his fate in The Rise of Skywalker.
Goodbye, Ben.
It's a nice moment that could have easily been a slapstick moment of her sending him through the portal in some ridiculous way. But instead, the writers chose to give Rey that small, quiet moment to say goodbye again. After defeating Palpatine, Rey sets the timeline straight, returning everyone where they belong before getting back to her own time. This is again where I have to assume, I'm saying in my own canon, that everyone forgets about the time travel shenanigans when they get transported back to their respective times without the crystal. Rey returns to her friends on Kashyyyk and plans to resume Finn's training, now with her newfound confidence. Again, I really hope we pick up on this storyline in the Rey Skywalker New Jedi Order movie, seeing Finn as a Jedi. Unfortunately, Disney treated John Boyega so poorly, this might be the last we see of Finn's training. The special ends with all our heroes now celebrating Life Day together with a few relationships re-established. For example, Zori and Poe are kinda implied to be together, after their strange sort of relationship in The Rise of Skywalker. Even the ghost of Luke and Leia join in the fun. Though I think it's strange that Ben isn't present, seeing as Rey even had the small goodbye moment earlier in the special. Granted, I think the team may have been trying to hold back, seeing as this was released a year after The Rise of Skywalker, and the future of Ben Solo as a Force ghost was still left ambiguous. In total, I think this special was a fun first trip into the post-Rise of Skywalker timeline, accompanied by the usual shenanigans that come with the LEGO-style humor. There's some interesting elements that could be cool additions to canon, like Finn's training, Rey fighting Vader, and Rey's decision to restore the timeline despite wanting to save Ben. Sure, there's some ridiculous LEGO slapstick surrounding it, but these are great moments that add to the fun playground of Star Wars. I also think the comedy surrounding these moments also works for everyone and doesn't come off as childish. This first special is probably my personal favorite of the LEGO specials. That being said, it's time to fast forward from Life Day to Halloween as we experience the next special,
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
Released 1 year after the holiday special for Halloween. Terrifying Tales follows Poe Dameron in a post-Rise of Skywalker adventure. The special is once again written by David Shane and directed by Ken Cunningham. While it's not as applicable to canon or as cohesive a narrative as the winter special, it serves as a fun collection of short stories for the spooky season. We find Poe Dameron and BB-8 hunting down First Order remnants above the surface of Mustafar, when he's shot down and crash lands on the planet's surface. Immediately off the bat, I have to point out that Mustafar is all dried up due to the events of Vader Immortal, the VR game. In this game, the player fulfills a prophecy that restores Mustafar to how the planet originally was. So I'm surprised the LEGO special took the effort to use the dried up version. It would have been very easy for them to just use the most recognizable version of the planet from Episode 3. Luckily, the two crashed near Vader's old castle, which is conveniently being converted into a resort by Graballa the Hutt. Graballa is actually an interesting addition to this special, seeing as he's from the LEGO animated series Star Wars The Freemaker Chronicles. As the Hutts do, Graballa strikes a deal with Poe. Graballa's mechanic Dean will fix Poe's ship in exchange for Poe's endorsement of the resort. Meanwhile, Vinay, Vader's former servant, feels Poe might be the one prophesized to unlock Vader's treasure vault beneath the castle. This inclusion of Vinay is a bump in continuity, as at this point in the timeline he's a head in a jar, as shown in the comics. That being said, he's voiced by Tony Hale, and the framing device for the best part of the special, so he gets a pass. In order to test if Poe is the chosen one, Vinay presents him with various Sith artifacts, each with a horror movie parody attached. The first artifact is the helmet of Ren. No, not Kylo Ren, just Ren. Ren is the leader of the Knights of Ren and the man who helped turn Ben Solo into Kylo Ren. He's frankly a very obscure character, only previously appearing in the comics, so this story is a really cool introduction to the character for general audiences and young children. In a parody of The Lost Boys, Vinay recounts Ben Solo's fall to the dark side with some added LEGO shenanigans. If you're interested in the official canon version of Ben's fall, check out the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. That being said, I think this short is a fun and easy way to introduce children, which is the primary audience for this special, into the idea of how Kylo fell to the dark side. The short ends with the Knights renaming Ben Kylo, which means small, weak, and scared. Previously in the short, Ren had used the name to mock Ben, but now he'll use it to defy those expectations. Frankly, I think it's a bit odd to have Kylo Ren's name be a Deku-type reclamation after he murders an old man and accidentally bombs his uncle's school, but whatever. Continuing into the vault, the second artifact is the broken saber of Skardant. While Dean the mechanic attempts to fix the saber, Vinay recounts the story of the dueling monstrosities, a play on the idea of classic Universal monsters fighting, like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. In this story, both the resurrected Darth Maul and rebuilt General Grievous battle over the saber in order to impress Sidious. Obviously, this cannot be canon in any way, seeing as Maul wants nothing to do with Sidious after his resurrection, and Maul and Grievous can't meet until their conflict in Son of Dathomir. That being said, the fight between the two of them is pretty fun. Back in the present day, Dean fixes the saber and it unlocks the next chamber of the vault. Here they find a Sith holocron that leads into the final short story, The Wookiee's Paw. Clearly a play on the monkey's paw, this is another story that clearly can't be canon, as we see Luke Skywalker wishing upon a Wookiee's paw to change his life. In this reality, he joins the Empire and has a relationship with his father, Darth Vader. However, as the monkey's paw warns, be careful what you wish for, and Luke's final wish to become more famous than Darth Vader results in his accidental destruction of the Death Star. I think this was probably the weakest of the 3 short stories, but still a cute what-if story. It reminded me of the Star Wars Infinities comic line, which was essentially Star Wars' version of Marvel's What If for the original trilogy. Using his anger and newfound sense in the Force, Dean opens the Sith holocron. Now, holocrons have always kind of been the whatever you need it to be of Star Wars. Sometimes they hold information, like an advanced hard drive. Other times, they're magic and hold great power. In this case, the holocron then allows Vinay to combine the powers of the artifacts into a giant Sith mech. Frankly, I'm surprised they never sold Lego sets of this thing. Thankfully, Poe and Dean realize that Vinay needs the holocron to sustain his power and fight him for it. The fight that ensues is essentially a bunch of Lego hijinks as Poe distracts Vinay while Dean repairs Poe's X-Wing. Ultimately, the fight ends with Vinay killing himself. Yes, you heard me correct. In this Lego Star Wars special, Vinay kills himself trying to catch the holocron when Dean throws it into the lava. The good old Gollum method. With the threat neutralized, Poe kicks Graballa off Mustafar, which frankly I thought was a bit of a dick move. He's just an up-and-coming entrepreneur making use of some abandoned real estate. I know Poe says it's to keep the Sith artifacts safe, but Graballa literally did nothing this whole special but own the property where all of this went down. So Poe takes Dean with him to one day become a pilot and to be trained in the Force by Rey. That little tidbit is interesting, as it could be seen as an expansion upon the idea that Rey is more comfortable teaching after the holiday special. Or at least I hope so. Imagine if she's not teaching, but every member of the Resistance just keeps dumping any Force-sensitive children they find off to Rey anyways. So like I said at the start of this section, I don't think this one is as strong as the holiday special. That being said, while a lot of it might not be canon stuff, it's fun. It reminded me a lot of classic Halloween specials that would air on children's networks or go straight to DVD. Think like Scared Shrekless. This special also introduces kids, the intended audience, to new and obscure characters like Vinay, Ren, and Graballa. Additionally, while ridiculous, the story feels like a scenario that could be told in the actual canon comics. Poe Dameron and BB-8 crash land at Vader's castle and discover a secret plot to steal ancient Sith artifacts. It's right there. It could easily be a comic book. In total, not the worst thing you could watch, but definitely targeted towards a younger audience. That being said, we've got one more special to talk about as we fast forward 8 months to Summer Vacation follows Finn in a post-Rise of Skywalker adventure. The special is once again written by David Shane and directed by Ken Cunningham. While it isn't as applicable to canon as the holiday special, I think it has more interesting character work than terrifying tales. Similar to Tales, we join our heroes as they share a fun collection of short stories for the summer. We join Finn, Rey, Poe, and others as they board the Halcyon Galactic Star Cruiser for a summer vacation. You heard that correctly. The Halcyon Galactic Star Cruiser, the famous role-playing Star Wars hotel that failed after a year of service. Gotta love that corporate synergy, baby! If you want to know more about the Galactic Star Cruiser, Jenny Nicholson has a very extensive video on the hotel, while I myself am working on a video about the ridiculous lore of this ship. Upon boarding, we learn that Lando has become the ship's ambassador. What does that mean? Doesn't matter, as we move on immediately. Finn scheduled this vacation as the group's last time together. However, they all split up to do their own respective activities. Similar to Terrifying Tales, Finn spends the specials visited by the ghost of Jedi's past to teach him about friendship and relaxation. While having a drink in the real-world hotel lounge, Finn is visited by the ghost of Obi-Wan. Finn immediately geeks out, telling Obi-Wan he's a huge Clone Wars fan. I thought this was really interesting, seeing as that's more information about his character than we ever got in the movies. I also like that Obi-Wan refers to Finn as a Jedi when speaking to him. Clearly, at least the team making the LEGO specials have embraced Finn's Force sensitivity more than anyone working on the movies. If John Boyega ever returns to Star Wars, they better give him a lightsaber and whatever else he wants. Obi-Wan tells the story of a time he helped a rebel named Colvet Valeria, voiced by the Queen of Community, Yvette Nicole Brown, on Tatooine during his exile. During this mission, Obi-Wan pretended to be her husband at Jabba the Hutt's birthday party to steal a coaxium. Again, it's surrounded by some LEGO karaoke shenanigans.
Gamorrean girls and Gamorrean guys fly like a ship through the star-filled skies. Gamorrean guys and Gamorrean girls moving like a groove until you're out of this world.
But I could see this story happening in a book or comic. A story where Obi-Wan is forced out of his comfort zone as he has to loosen up to blend into the settings of Jabba's palace. There's nothing crazy in it that would break canon. Additionally, the two end up chased by Boba Fett, and his theme song from his show plays during the chase. I would love if that just became his theme whenever we see him, similar to how Wonder Woman's bombastic theme played every time she simply drank a Coke or walked on screen. At the end of the story, Kenobi explains that the lesson is to have fun in the moment, because you'll never know how long it will last. Next up on Finn's vacation is a trip to the surface of Scarif, which has clearly been restored in the 34 years since it was blown up in Rogue One. And I just have to say, Finn's little sandcastle here is very cute and very funny, especially since Vader hated sand so much.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Speaking of Vader, the ghost of Anakin Skywalker visits Finn to recount the time he and Palpatine visited Scarif. Bored of ruling the galaxy, Palpatine allows Vader to take him to Scarif, where the two stumble upon a Weird Al Yankovic concert and participate in a beach games competition, during which Palpatine manages to ruin everyone's day while improving his. By the end of their trip, Palpatine is inspired to turn Scarif into the Imperial base we all know from Rogue One. This would also be something they would do in a book or comic. Obviously not in this big, ridiculous LEGO way, but they love to name drop the popular planets in the books and comics and give them some kind of origin. Anakin laments to Finn that the takeaway from his story is to find your bliss and do what you love. Frankly, I think it's a bit odd to have Anakin recount his time as Vader with Palpatine and not his secret wedding with his wife, but I get it. The IP of Vader is too recognizable not to be included in some manner. Upon returning to the Star Cruiser, Finn is visited by his final ghost, Leia, laughing at the idea that Obi-Wan knew how to have fun. Rude for someone who saved your life twice. For her lesson, Leia recounts a family trip to Endor. The reason they were taking this trip was to have one last bonding session before Ben leaves for Luke's academy, and we all know how that goes. Additionally, I think it's kind of crazy that out of anywhere in the galaxy to go for a place to relax and bond more with their son, Han and Leia bring Ben to the place where his parents became galactic heroes, got married, and potentially conceived him. I feel like there are more secluded or fun places they could have taken him. During the trip, Han has a hard time letting Ben grow up, until he's forced to after some typical teenager shenanigans involving the Millennium Falcon. Leia remarks that sometimes you have to be ready to say goodbye, even if it hurts. And then she's comforted by none other than the Force ghost of Ben Solo. I assume at this point it had been 3 years since The Rise of Skywalker, and the creators had finally gotten the okay to do it. Hey, Finn, maybe that's something you should tell Rey next time you see her. He's not going to? Okay. It's at this time Finn also reveals what he meant at the start of the special when he said everyone was leaving. While the First Order has been opposed, the fight isn't finished yet. There's still a galaxy to be rebuilt. Rey is heading to the unknown regions to search for lost Jedi temples. Poe is training new X-Wing pilots. Rose is leading relief missions, and Finn is searching the galaxy for Force-sensitive people like himself. I really like that the special takes the time to acknowledge that they all have their own place in the galaxy, even if it's not always together. It's a very mature message for a show directed at children. At the end, everyone reunites in the atrium where Finn applies the lessons he's learned from the Ghost as well as from his friends. Poe named him, Rey gave him purpose, and Rose gave him hope. His acknowledgement of each friend is accompanied by LEGO versions of scenes from the movies, which was a nice connecting touch. Better to show than just tell. Ultimately, Finn comes to the conclusion that although the trip may end, the memories never do. Again, a mature choice for a narrative of a LEGO special. So the summer vacation special might not be as lore extensive, but it does have a few different interesting lore bits, and I think it has some better character work than Terrifying Tales. Small things like Finn being accepted as a Jedi by the Ghost of the Past, or everyone splitting up at the end are great lore additions. It was also fun to follow Finn after he did nothing in Rise of Skywalker in the last two specials. The lessons taught in the special were also pretty mature lessons for a show pointed at babies. Rather than giving everyone their happily ever after, they instead go their separate ways, acknowledging their friendship will live on. And those were the LEGO Star Wars Holiday Specials. 3 unique and festive specials spread out over 3 years that each brought something new and interesting to a galaxy far, far away. Was this video a bit ridiculous? Maybe, but Star Wars is meant to be fun, and I just wanted to share the fun I had, and you might have, with these specials. There's at least one tidbit of lore and a gag for everyone in these. That being said, these are not the only times LEGO Star Wars have ventured into a long-form animation. Originally, I planned to discuss Rebuild the Galaxy, the Star Wars What If series, but this video is long enough already, so I guess it will have to be another video for another time. Let me know down in the comments if you've watched any of these specials and what you thought about them. If you want to be here for that Rebuild the Galaxy video or any others, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.